To help us understand what we can do to protect our information, we're joined by CNET Consumer Insights editor Dashia Milden. Thanks for talking with us, Dashia.
Thank you for having me. Hi.
Hi. So, okay, if my information has been compromised, how will I know?
Well, if you've signed up for an identity theft protection service, which we 100% recommend, you'll definitely receive those sorts of alerts. So, for example, if your information has been compromised, if your credit card information is out there, email addresses, password, it depends, of course, on the identity theft protection service that you use. But usually you'll receive those alerts. So, highly encourage everyone to at least get one of those services just in terms of credit monitoring, password monitoring, and just keeping a close eye on all of your identity information there.
And it's so scary how much information hackers already collect on us without us being hacked. How do we protect ourselves?
Really, it boils down to a really strong password. And when we start thinking about a strong password, it usually is not one that includes all of your everyday information, such as your birthday, anniversary, the list goes on. What you're going to want to look for instead are those random passwords, randomly generated. You can use a password generator for that. And usually, what we find from there is when you create a really strong password, it doesn't mean that it cannot be compromised or hacked. However, it's not giving the hacker any specific clues that may be on your Facebook profile or maybe really easy to find after doing a quick Google search about you. So we did find, based off of CNET's most recent survey, that 1 in 4 US adults do use a password generator. But on the other hand, close to 1 in 4 adults still use the same password for multiple accounts, which can be very dangerous. So highly recommend a password generator, and that can usually be found when getting a password manager.
Oh boy, I guess the dog's name doesn't work anymore. Now, aren't there ways companies are supposed to be protecting us from these hacks? And if so, why don't those protections work?
So there is some really good news here that we got to think about is that Microsoft currently has a deadline in place where Microsoft Authenticator will use passkeys instead of passwords. And just a really quick, brief understanding here of what a passkey is. A passkey usually uses either a fingerprint or PIN or facial recognition, which is usually a lot safer than a password because that information isn't necessarily being stored online. It's only being stored on the device. So when we really start thinking about logging into your computer and maybe using a fingerprint, that's a really smart example here. One thing that we got to keep in mind is that not every company is currently doing this. So you're going to want to make sure that you set up two-factor authentication, look into other security measures that that provider may offer. But passkeys is definitely a more safe and reliable route. It doesn't mean that your information won't get hacked, but it is safer than a password. So it is good to see that Microsoft is heading in that direction.
That's amazing. Passkeys are definitely helpful. CNET editor Dashia Milden, thanks so much for joining us and laying it all out for us. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.